Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Slam of Wrestling. Myself, Supreet, and this is your AEW Dynamite review for August 11th, 2021. I'm joined by Ridwan here. What's up, Ridwan?
Hey Supreet, how's it going? It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while, man, but I'm doing pretty well. AEW is doing very well. So, what you think about Dynamite this week?
This week's Dynamite was, honestly, it was a tad bit below the usual stuff, but it was pretty enjoyable in its own right. How did you feel about it?
Yeah, it was the card itself, it was not star-studded. It was just there, and show quality, it was, you could say it was a decent show.
Yeah, it was a decent show, and they were just trying to build up to their upcoming Rampage show. So most of the concentration was towards building that show, while whatever you had on Dynamite was just like just going through the motions, but in a way delivering it as well.
Like they do it in purposely. Like they know if you have a big show, big dynamite or a big pay-per-view, they purposely, give this random dynamites just to, cool off the people, I guess.
Yes, in a way it works too because the more you try to enjoy, the more the fans get tired sometimes, and too much of a good thing could be a bad thing sometimes.
And we got a rampage starting this week. So things are looking pretty good in the world of AEW.
Yes, and there are like a lot more reasons that things are looking good for AEW, you could say.
And the coming week is going to be crazy, man. A lot of wrestling to cover.
Yes, like it's the SummerSlam week, plus you have Dynamite and Rampage. And plus you also have NXT Takeover too. So
What?
it's gonna be
NXT
an
Takeover?
NXT. Yes,
Are you
NXT
watching
Takeover
that
is pretty
show?
sick. I'm not like I only catch up on takeovers like for the past year or so, but watching takeovers itself is pretty good. I can't keep up with the weekly stuff.
Enough of the NXT talk, man. Let's talk about AEW here. So, we had the Elite versus Dante Martin and Cider Brothers, a very random match on Dynamite, but it was pretty good. We also had a Darby Allin and Daniel Garcia match. Chris Statlander, she faced Nyla Rose. We had a Impact Tag Team title match. It was the Good Brothers, so they were defending their titles against Evil Uno and Stu Grayson, and the fourth labor of Jericho, Chris Jericho versus Wardlow. So, and pretty much more. But before that, if you are new to Slam Up Wrestling, then make sure to like, share, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. Check out our other content. And by the way, I dropped a interview this week with Divya Ale, CW star Divya Ale. So check that out. But let's quickly get into Dynamite. And they actually opened up with a MJF Wardlow promo. So we had MJF, hyping up the fourth labor of Jericho match, where Jericho faces Wardlow. So he was hyping up this match, and at the same time eating a apple, and he was basically saying that there's no chance that Jericho is beating Wardlow, and if he does, and when he gets to MJF, then he will fall to MJF once again. So we had Wardlow, was confidently saying, "There's no way Jericho is beating me." So MJF, he sarcastically, brings up, yeah, it's kind of like how lost to Cody Rhodes, something like that. And he's basically told to Wardlow, get the job done, and he handed that apple to Mr. Wardlow, and Wardlow is all pissed here. So
Crushes the
small little
apple.
seed, a small seed, you could say, in the future of what they could do with Wardlow and MJF, you know. But what do you think about this opening stuff we had on Dynamite, man? And that small tease.
I kind of like how, like when MJF brought up Wardlow losing to Cody like way back in the day. That was, I think, the build up to Revolution 2020 when MJF was facing Cody Rhodes.
Yes, you're right.
And I like how they have like, they always, AW keeps rewarding us for like, remembering something. It's like we don't have our intelligence insulted. And speaking of the dissension angle, like they have teased a little, like they're just trying to sow the seeds of something big that will happen later on. And plus we'll get to the result of Wardlow versus Jericho, like as we cover the show. But yeah, I mean, Wardlow, people have been like, fantasy booking Wardlow as a babyface. How is he going to break off from MJF? And it's going to take its time, like probably I'd say give it another year or less than that. But like there is a lot of potential for Wardlow as a babyface, and like MJF is like the most detestable heel in AEW. Probably not
Number
now,
one.
like yeah, number one, or right now you could say number two, after the Elite. But yeah, I mean, interesting times ahead for, I mean, the Pinnacle as a whole, and obviously, like more importantly, Jericho and sorry, MJF and Wardlow.
I think you compare this to Evolution Batista type of story.
I was just going to get to that actually. Like people have been openly comparing Wardlow to Batista, and how is Wardlow's breaking off from MJF is going to be similar to how Batista broke from Triple H. So you could see that comparison. Like it's too soon to say, but we could get to that eventually.
But let's quickly get into the opening match we had on Dynamite. It was the Elite, Young Bucks and Kenny Omega. So they were facing Dante Martin and Cider Brothers. So not a backstory in this match, just they have randomly booked it, But we need, certain random matches, some high spots, a high paced, match to, entertain the crowd. So it was, this match was just that. And you have to say that Dante Martin was the MVP of this match. What you got?
Easily. Like usually, when you're starting a show, you tend to start your matches with such a high spots match to, like keep the hot crowd going, and like give them a taste of what's to come in the show. So this match was pretty much in that category, where you have this six very spotty wrestlers, who could high flyers, and it was more or less the spotlight was on Dante Martin in this match, while like Seidel brothers are, I mean, Matt Seidel is pretty accomplished wrestler in his own right, and the Elite are at the top of the wrestling industry right now. So Dante Martin was basically a spring chicken, you could say, but the spotlight was on him, and it was his time to shine, and he pretty much did so in this match. So good to see that happen.
And the fans took a while to, get behind the baby faces. Like the Elite, they were getting the heel reaction, but it took a while to, get behind the Seidel brothers and Dante Martin.
Yes, I mean the start was usual slow. Like the Elite were dominating most of this match at first, while they were working on Mike Seidel for the most part, and then Matt Seidel gets the hot tag, but he gets immediately cut off by, I think it was Nick or Kenny, one of the two. And then like after a while, the Dante Martin gets the hot tag, which immediately puts him over in a way, while he's trying to save the match for his team, and then he was showcasing his athletic ability. So in that case, they did a good job of spotlighting what he can do, and he's been wrestling more semi regularly on Dynamite, while at the same time he's been showcasing more of his talents on Dark, while I think his brother is injured, I believe, Darius.
Yeah, that's why he's, as of now, a singles guy.
Yes, and he did also get a TNT title opportunity, while that the storyline implication was more or less a big fuck you to Lance Archer, while Miro was like trying to show how dominant he was. But this was basically like Dante Martin's coming out party while this match was going on with Elite, and you could say you couldn't have gotten a better opportunity than showcasing your talents against three of the best wrestlers in the company, or even the industry, you could say, like the best tag team in the world and the best wrestler in the world. So that's a pretty big accomplishment.
So, like I said, Dante Martin was the MVP of this match. That head scissors or Hurricanrana was a thing of beauty, man.
Like there were two head scissor spots. One was in the ring while he was running towards the entrance ramp and then coming back. And the other was like a springboard move to Kenny, and it was like yeah, it was exactly at the hard cam spot. So Dante Martin was jumping, like he did a springboard and then he did a head scissors on Omega, which looked like clean as a whistle. And then you could actually notice that just before the springboard spot, there was Matt Seidel standing and he was just completely mucking out, which was like heartwarming to see. Like, someone young like Dante Martin is getting his time to shine, and you as a veteran is like, rooting for him completely. So that was a bit that was really good to see. It was at
So
the left side of the like of while the sport was happening.
So I think in the final parts we had Omega and Martin. So they had a little, face off where they actually had Dante Martin, try to counter the one winged angel, but he falls to Omega with a V trigger. So we had Omega hit the one winged angel, then the Bucks came and they hit a triple combo team, like they hit a BT V trigger, something like that. That's it. And the Elite won the match. Pretty good match to open up Dynamite. And we had a little big post match angle. So
Yes.
before the match, it was kind of announced that Christian Cage is facing Kenny Omega for the AEW World Championship at the pay-per-view All Out. So we had Christian Cage coming out. He kind of interrupted this post-match promo where we had Don Callis, just cutting a typical heel promo. I love, when they actually give the mic to Don Callis rather than giving the mic to Omega. Omega is good sometimes, but Don Callis, he kills it every time you give the mic to him.
Yeah, he's a master on the mic, you could say.
So Callis is cutting this promo. Here comes Hangman Page, Christian Cage. So he's the official number one contender now. So Callis stops him midway, calls him a Stamford Stooge, says that the Elite have the number game. You are all alone. So then we hear the music of Jungle Boy. The crowd pops big for that one. We have Luchasaurus coming out. Jungle Boy came as well. So we have three baby faces against the Elite now. So we kind of had a promo segment here where Christian Cage, he says something like he has been talking to Tony Khan. He has been also talking to the Impact officials, and he has set up another match other than the pay-per-view match at All Out. So it's going to be Christian Cage. He will be challenging Kenny Omega for the Impact World Championship, and this match is happening. This will be, by the way, the first match on Rampage this week.
So it's kicking off the show.
So I think it was Abby who reminded me that we were actually, kind of fantasy booking this scenario where Christian may challenge Kenny for the Impact World Championship rather than the AEW World Championship. But we are getting both now, both matches. So what do you think about it?
I mean, Christian versus Omega, for like, I'll just get to the start. Like, like a lot has changed since I stopped reviewing Dynamite for a while, like, with your situation. But like, we were so behind Hangman Page and his babyface rise, and then later on he's written off action to, like, his wife is giving birth, so because of that he's also taken off TV. And everyone, like, I'd say everyone was rooting behind Hangman to finally get his moment, but you could simmer things down for a while. Like you could wait because of the rumored arrivals of guys like CM Punk and Daniel Bryan. Am I jumping the gun over here?
Yeah, I know where you're getting at. Like when it was the fans, by the way, here didn't actually give a good reaction that we are getting Christian Cage versus Kenny Omega. I get it.
Yeah,
I said it last week. I don't actually have a problem with Christian Cage getting the world title opportunity. Like it's going to be a filler match, and like we could expect a good match, but there are bigger fishes to fry here. So if you had put Hangman over there, then there would have been a chance that the bigger moments, the bigger guys that are coming here, that their moment would have overshadowed Hangman. So I like
Exactly.
that AEW is giving Hangman this time. So when he finally comes back, he will get a bigger moment of his own, and that's going to be his time, his moment. But Christian Cage going after Kenny Omega, I don't have a problem.
Yeah. So I was saying, like, this, like, exactly what you said, that, guys, like, if guys, the rumored arrivals of guys like Punk and Bryan are, it's true, then it will completely overshadow Hangman's moment. And it deserves a moment of its own. So, like, something huge. And of course, it's like the biggest title of your biggest championship of your company. So Christian filling that slot, I don't mind at all, like, for obvious reasons, because, like, I've always mentioned on this podcast, like, Christian's one of my all-time favorite wrestlers. And him being the number one contender, and of course he's been undefeated all these months. So it was only fair that he would have gotten a title shot. But having said that, eh, to build up the anticipation for Rampage, and like having Kenny and Christian face off for the Impact Championship, like before the main AEW Championship match, that to me, I feel it's a little interesting. Probably it's a bit random, but more or less, like, maybe they're setting up for something, even though, like, it's an Impact Championship match, and it's not going to affect the AEW ranking system, with the wins and losses record. But you could, if Kenny has defeated Christian before facing Christian for the main championship, you may or may not expect a bait and switch coming, or am I thinking too much?
So technically, you're saying you might see Christian getting the Impact Championship at Rampage.
No, what I was saying, that Christian, if this is happening, and it's fair that if Christian wins the championship, but you're kind of taking away Omega's like, shine a little as the world champion, and the world champion is supposed to be like your most protected guy, no matter what the organization is. But again, like, it's still weird that this match is happening before the main AEW championship match. And if this match is going on, then maybe I could expect a bait and switch coming from, like, for the later championship. Maybe Christian gets taken out, or like someone else is jumping the gun, and, like, challenging Kenny for the championship. And you're what, like 3 weeks away from All Out now, and if the World Championship match is still not set, then I think it's a little weird in that aspect too.
So
Because
you're saying someone else is going to take the spot of Christian Cage.
it could happen, probably, like, if the Elite, if they completely brutalize Christian after the match on Rampage, or like later on, like in the build up to Rampage, in the build up to All Out. But having Christian and Kenny fight for the championship works for me, because, again, like, for the reasons that both of us have mentioned, and for the obvious bias that I have for Christian.
Let's see, man. The scenario you throw, it's making this whole situation even more unpredictable.
Yes, it is unpredictable on all accounts. Like, who is going to win this match and who's going to win. Like, Omega is pretty much going to win the match at All Out. But again, like, if Christian challenging Kenny on Rampage throws in a wrench, if, like, this is more a hypothetical situation, then there is, like, a lot less to predict, and, like, the more things that we have to just, stick our eyes to on the show.
And by the way, like I said, the fans are not that into Christian Cage with all this whole announcement, and they kind of try to hijack the whole segment here. We had a CM Punk
Yes.
chant and a small yes chant. So there you go. That's what the fans think of Christian Cage as of now. And this was not just Christian Cage. We also had Jurassic Express over there. So they
Sorry, continue.
so
I
you
have to
had to
sneeze.
sneeze. Okay.
Yeah,
Where was I?
Jurassic Express.
Yeah, so Jurassic Express was over there. So they had the intentions for the AW Tag Team Championships. And by the way, I think they are number one ranked right now. So they kind of
Yeah.
challenged, or it is made official by Tony Khan, that Jurassic Express will be getting a title shot against the Bucks at next week's Dynamite.
Next
So
week's Dynamite.
I don't know. You could have set it on the pay-per-view itself. If
Yes,
if
like
Jurassic Express, if they are number one ranked, you could have set it in the pay-per-view itself.
that's what I mean. Not just this, like there are a lot of matches that are being set what we could expect for All Out. They have been taking place on Dynamite. Like last week, we had Cody Rhodes versus Malachi Black. What we were predicting was going to be one of the showcase matches on All Out was took place on Dynamite, and we'll get to another match that is in the similar situation. But yeah, it's like still super weird to me that this Bucks versus Jurassic Express match is taking place on next week's show rather than All Out. While again, like I mentioned, you have like what 3 weeks now, 3 weeks before the show, and like there is only like three matches announced, I guess, apart like the world title match, the women's casino battle royale, and there's another match that we'll get to later on. So
So as
it's
of
it's
now,
it's it's still
yeah,
weird that
yeah, I don't know. I still stick to the opinion that you could have done it on the pay-per-view itself if they are already
yeah
ranked number one.
they should have, and maybe like we are expecting some other team to challenge them, which again we'll get to later on. So
Do you have someone in mind?
like they've teased it a little, but I don't think they are in the position to challenge.
Let's see, but the other tag team that I was expecting, maybe getting a title shot. I was talking about Proud and Powerful, Santana and Ortiz. So they are a little promo segment. So last week we had Dax Harwood. He talked about what happened in their last match against Proud and Powerful, and so we had this week we had Proud and Powerful. Talking about their takes and what they believe. They kind of said that if they were put in that position that Cash Wheeler was in, then they would have tied their wounds up and finish the match, continue the match, something like that. So they are still continuing this feud. And just like I said last week, that injury to Cash Wheeler, oh, that was horrible.
They showed it in close up this time, which was even awful,
Do
even worse.
the every time I will see that, I will definitely cringe.
Yeah, dude. Like I didn't last week. I was trying to keep myself away from it, but this week while they showed like they zoomed in on the exact moment that it happened while his skin tore off. Like, it was like not NSFW moment for me. It was so bad, so
But
bad
I
to see
don't.
that is.
But you could do this on a Dynamite. I don't want to see it on a paper.
Yeah, you could. And this feud is far from over because, I mean, the match, given the circumstances it ended in, so there is obviously a lot more room for this match to happen again, which is nice. And we could probably expect a better match later on, and let's see what happens. But this match that had happened, like FTR won instead of Proud and Powerful, and like if you had expected Proud and Powerful to win and no, they've lost, and you had predicted like they could actually go on to challenge, but that's not how it works, right? Maybe you need like a certain wins and then probably challenge. And besides Jurassic Express, who's like, because I think FTR was around 3 or 4 on the rankings. I don't know who was second and third to challenge the Bucks. And inevitably, like let's just call it, if Jurassic Express loses, and who else is there to challenge, we'll probably get to that later on.
So you still have someone that tag team that you wanted to go against the Bucks?
I mean, personally, yes, but like I said, they also teased it. So should I go ahead with that or
Give it away, man.
Lucha Bros?
So you want Lucha Bros versus the Young Bucks?
I mean, I want it personally because I mean, the teams itself are amazing, but they teased it a little on the show too, because while so we'll get to the promo of Park and Park, yes, Park and Lucha Bros. So Park is basically like he's trying to say things to Andrade, how he's been treating the Lucha Bros lately and how is he so obsessed with them, while he wants Lucha Bros to quote unquote work with Andrade and work for Andrade and like being besides him as equals. So Park is like saying like you should prove how hard you are, or show how tough you are, and then he lays out a challenge for All Out to face Andrade. And spoiler a little, I'm spoiling it a little, that Andrade accepts it for the match. So it's official now that Park versus Andrade is taking place at All Out. But they teased a little while Park was trying to, like, Phoenix was trying to raise his concerns that, Andrade has been treating them like shit for the past few weeks. And Park is like, you don't worry about it. You focus on the tag titles. You guys deserve to win at this time. So there is like a tiny bit of teasing that they have done in this promo. And the funny part was when Penta was trying to like say in Spanish, like he was trying to speak out to Andrade, and he was obviously abusing him. And then he takes his abuse a little too further. He's like chinga tu, and then Alex stops him, and while he's trying to translate, the Penta says things, and then Park interrupts. He's like, Alex, I don't want you to translate, but then he lays out the challenge. So there you go. This feud has felt a little flat to me, because I mean maybe it's because of the crowd reactions, but Andrade's run so far has been a little topsy turvy. But then I'm confident that he's going to bounce back, and this match with Park is exactly what he needs to, like, boost up his credentials a little. But I'm excited for this match, man. What do you think about this whole situation?
About the feud, it's you could say lower card, mid card feud, not even a mid card. I will say it was a lower card feud. But you got, the name value, you got the talent. So I expect a good match. Hope,
It's going to
Andrade,
be.
doesn't go too much tranquilo and just be lazy in that match. And that's it.
Is it off the record or on the record that you say that he's tranquilo or lazy?
I hope, he go studies Tetsuya Naito tapes and not, study Rouge tapes. That's my reference.
Yeah. That's very true. But it's pretty hard to pick a winner in this match too, because even if like Park has he's lost like probably twice or thrice since, or you could say a bit more than that. Like it's around 5 or 6 times, and that's taking from the start of AW to now. And he's been like one of their most protected guys. Even during like when he challenged for the world championship with OC versus Kenny, and he wasn't the one who got pinned. And he's been booked like strong continuously for like a long time. So this is also quite unpredictable who is going to win, but let's see what happens.
And about the Lucha Bros, they kind of slightly giving away that they are going to join Andrade. And you also brought up, they could be possibly challenging for the tag championships. Let's see where it goes.
Yeah, like now if Jurassic, like I had mentioned, like Jurassic Express, if they're challenging next week, then with this tease they might have to challenge Young Bucks for the championship. But apart from that, like maybe the FTR and Proud and Power will have their own things going. So Lucha Bros is the only one who are there who could probably challenge. And who else? Like, you can't really bring anyone else out of through the forbidden door to challenge Young Bucks
We don't
at All Out.
actually need the Forbidden Door to, bring in to the main storylines, I guess.
Hmm.
But
Right.
So moving on, so we had Darby Allin. So he was facing Daniel Garcia. So Mr. Garcia is accompanied by 2.0, and this is the second week in a row. These three guys are being featured on Dynamite. I said it to Abby last week that there is something with these three guys. I will say that Daniel Garcia is really great in the ring. Maybe I would go out of the way and say maybe top three with Jonathan Gresham and Zack Sabre Jr. best technical wrestler in the world right now.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's too far. Like he's pretty much like with the current showings, he's up there. But this was probably like my first proper exposure to Daniel Garcia, except for last week while it was a trios match. And obviously, like, everyone's getting their time to shine. In this case, like, of course, it's a one-on-one match. So obviously, you have more time and effort to focus and showcase on someone like Daniel Garcia. And he's going up against Darby Allin, who's one of the more established members on the AEW roster and pretty popular name, obviously. So Daniel, like this was again, it was a showcase of highlighting young talent. Like this show in itself was, you could say, and they did put the spotlight well on Daniel Garcia, and he showed what he was capable of. And probably like a little bit of a spoiler, maybe not so, but he kind of reminds me of Drew Gulak in the ring, tiny bit.
Yeah, like that's what I meant with a really great technical wrestler.
Yes, like his mat base style, like while he was putting Darby in holds and he was trying to use his knuckles to apply more pressure. So it was very Drew Gulak like for me, and yeah, it's right in my alley of enjoying technical wrestling.
But it's pretty interesting, AW is interested in bringing big names. Meanwhile, they are trying to look out for other talents, just like Daniel Garcia.
Yes, and like you could probably later on, like as his character builds up along with his wrestling skills getting polished, you like if he comes out with a black towel, he anyway got the black trunks nailed. So you could probably, like, if later on as he gets more and more grizzled, you could probably have him copy Minoru Suzuki and just kick people's head off.
That's what I was saying. I was about to get with that, ring gear and that black towel and stuff. But yeah, it kind of looks like Junior Suzuki.
Yes, like if Suzuki's trained young lion after, like Suzuki's trained young lion who has just come out of an abusive relationship, for the lack of a better term.
No, he doesn't train young lion. He just tortures him.
Yeah, right.
But talking about this match, it was short. It was sweet. You could say, a great showcase of the technical wrestling style from Daniel Garcia, and they actually gave a lot to Daniel Garcia and made him look like a threat. And there was actually one spot where Darby Allin was going for this coffin drop, and Daniel Garcia caught him in a sleeper. That was a really great spot.
Oh, that was amazing. Like
So
he was going, yeah.
So I think Garcia was going for some submission, and Darby Allin hit a stunner, hit a coffin drop, and that was it. And we did see some interference from 2.0, and then we had Sting coming out and chasing the two tag team here. So the set tag team here. So that's another story that they are trying here with 2.0 and Sting. So as a result, we are getting Sting and Darby Allin. So they'll be facing 2.0 in some tornado tag match on next
Texas
week's
Tornado
Dynamite.
match.
So
Texas Tornado.
so there you go. They also trying 2.0 now. This trying to experiment with these guys. They can get over or not. I don't know. Even there is something with 2.0 that people appreciate. There's something in them. Even I'm not getting. What do you think about
Like
2.0?
this is probably the time I'm getting to enjoy more of them. Like I wasn't watching NXT much, so my not knowledge, my enjoyment or my exposure to Ever Rise wasn't as much, you could say. And then, like, them being 2.0, they are back to their old gimmick of what they used to have in Chikara and, like, other indies. So it's, I mean, they're even getting their own promo style in AW, while they're having their entrances, and they have these jobber inset promo, which is very 1980s like. And in a way that could help them get over. And obviously, like, they are, of course, one of the established names on the independent scene. They are like similar to Evil Uno and Stu Grayson, while like, they made most of their name in Chikara and the other Canadians. And they are from the same territory as well. I think they are from Quebec. They are from Quebec, like French Canadians, the four of them. And yeah, as in, like, they have been, famous for being funny in a way. Like, of course, they're coming from Chikara, and which is more or less comedy wrestling. But yeah, I mean, these are like moments while that's helping them get over, and at the same time, you're being paired with someone like Darby, who is, one of your most famous guys of the company, and Sting, who is one of the all-time greats. So they couldn't have been in any better position than, facing these guys and getting over, while also building up on their independent wrestling credibility that they've had over the years before joining WWE, that is.
So as of now, Darby Allin is just messing around because he has a certain best in the world in mind. And by the way, did you see
Yes.
this random interview? I didn't get the chance to check the entire clip also. So I think it was CM Punk. Okay, he was on some
Hmm.
random podcast, and this interviewer, he said, "Will you be showing up at the United Center, AEW, Rampage, etc., etc.?" CM
And first
Punk,
does.
he in a normal tone said he was just checking his schedule, saying he has a screening for a movie. He has commentary for his MMA company that he does commentary for, and something like that. And he just basically blew him off. So there you go.
Yeah. About that, like, that has been CM Punk's schedule for like probably 3 years now. So ever since he lost his, I don't know, like, he won in retrospect his last MMA fight in UFC. Like, it was very recently that that loss of his turned into a win. So technically, he's not a loser anymore in UFC, which is good to see. And that has been a schedule for the most part. Like, he's been acting, he's been busy acting in movies straight to DVD, and he's been commentating on this MMA promotion, which is acting like a developmental territory for UFC, for in a more wrestling lingo. But having said that, like, stretching back to Darby's promo a few weeks ago, while it was an obvious target at CM Punk. And they've, like, you don't usually notice it, but even like the AW cameras and production team, they were very much focusing on the CM Punk chant while it happened. Like, even before Darby's promo, when they announced that it's in the shows in Chicago. And like, we've seen in interviews past that CM Punk has been a huge fan of Darby Allin. Like, he at every single opportunities put Darby Allin over in interviews. And getting back to this this interview of CM Punk, he was obviously, he was blowing the interviewer off. And at the same time, like, there are all these obvious reports. It's even confirmed by, I think, even Melzer said that CM Punk is showing up. Did he?
I think it was Andrew Zane, not Meltzer.
Andrew Zarian. Yeah.
Meltzer said that, I believe, but Andrew Zarian,
Yeah,
I
they
think
are
he
in
has some
contact.
extra scoop on that story.
Yes. So shouts out to Andrew Zarian on that. And like, there was this, like, interview on Oral Sessions with Renee Young and Stephen Amell, star actor of Arrow and The Heels on Stars Play. And CM Punk has also been training with them. And he also said that, plus Andrew Zarian confirming it, that CM Punk has never looked good in the ring. Like, he's in tip-top ring shape. And like, he's been doing well, like, training for wrestling. So obviously, like, with the rumors and all news situations surrounding this, that he's going to show up. But you think with the way they've teased, like, for this first done show of Rampage, he has to show up, right? Or else there's going to be a riot in Chicago.
There's going to be a riot in Chicago, and Tony Khan will be a marked man in that area for life.
Wanted for teasing CM Punk.
If CM Punk, listen, if CM Punk doesn't show up next week, obviously there's going to be a riot. United Center will be burned to the ground. Tony Khan has to be, will have to, leave Chicago in his private jet and never come back.
He's eventually coming back for All Out. So it's like that. If Tony Khan, if you remember that famous line, if Cena wins, we riot. So it's something like you could say for CM Punk. If Punk doesn't show up, we riot. So you have all of these news and rumors that are attesting to CM Punk's eventual return. And there is, like, it's too good to be true that it's happening, but it is like it could happen with everything that we know. And it has to happen, rather, because of how they've been setting up expectations thanks to the wrestling sources, and of course all the teasers that AEW have been doing.
He's showing up, man. He's showing up, and me and Abby will be marking out on the Rampage review. That's it.
So will I. But like while watching the show, of course.
But moving on, we have Malachi Black. So he's been a hot thing lately on AEW television. He beat Cody Rhodes. He was basically, we had a little promo here, he was talking about the whole thing, beating Cody and that post-match thing. So he was basically telling this whole story in riddles, but he at least got the point across. So there you go. So we could be seeing this Cody Rhodes and Malachi Black thing, a rematch in the future, not at All Out, but
that doesn't have to be.
Do you think it's going to be at All Out or after All Out?
Has to be after All Out, because Cody retired. You knew that, right? So he's like, just leaves his boot in, and that fake retirement didn't do it for me, to be honest. Like, I was laughing more than feeling sympathetic for Cody, which is actually quite sad. And like, this was Malachi's promo while he was saying that is he the bad guy in the story, while he was trying to put away guys like Cody, who surrounds himself with the luxury and everything. And then he's like, he takes his boot and he says, you've already got 1 foot in the grave. I think that was a very killer line from Malachi.
And he also has eyes on someone else, like he is throwing out an open challenge over there. So let's see where that goes. Maybe he's going for another big name.
Let's see. Like, they tease anyone?
No, it's just a promo where he just calls out the roster and that's it. Not actually a certain individual or a certain wrestler.
Yeah, true. And stepping away from Malachi a little, like, did you see the promo last week by Buddy Murphy's Twitter account?
I did see that. Like, he has been saying that he's going to drop some teaser, and yeah, it kind of giving me vibes of Jon Moxley, of that whole locked in prison kind of vibe.
Even Malachi for that matter.
Yeah. And by the way, there's this lot of similarities between Malachi's and Buddy Murphy's. There's this doctor guy in that video, Josiah Williams.
Josiah Williams, yeah. Shout out.
By the way, the production of these video packages have been really great.
It's down.
And people are predicting that Buddy Murphy might show up in AEW. There are also people going out of the way saying that Malachi Black and Buddy Murphy will be in a faction or will be a unit or something like that. I don't know, man. I wouldn't.
A lot of DC booking.
Yeah, I actually kind of don't want Buddy Murphy in AEW. Like, he could kill it in any other place like Impact or New Japan or Ring of Honor, or the indie scene is really doing great as of now. So don't actually want him in AWP, but if he shows up in AW, good for him.
Yes, and apart from AEW, like he can always show up in the indies, like how Malakai showed up as Tommy End in PWG facing Brody King, who is, yeah, they both have like similar gimmicks by itself. And speaking of Buddy Murphy, like there's even if he shows up in Impact or New Japan, there's always the Forbidden Door in AEWs in Florida. So there are a lot of it's like a revolving door. Like wherever you go, you're still going to end up somewhere else. And for Buddy Murphy, like I want him to shine on his own. If he comes to AEW, I don't want him to be a part of a faction with Malakai, as there is more history of them being on the opposite sides than actually being together. And with all the fantasy booking in picture, people have also like speculated, or rather predicted or booked, whatever you want to call it. Malakai Black to be, his House of Black faction could include Butcher and the Blade, obviously. And there's also Abaddon. So like they've put in all the spooky goth characters and so-called mercenaries and put them into one. So what do you think about that?
Are you saying that they're kind of ripping off the Monday Night Messiah faction?
Little bit, but it's like it's a good. This is just basically a goth fantasy dream, which I'm not personally looking for. But again, it's just speculation at the end of the day. So who are we to question that?
By the way, I prefer Malachi Black going singles and
Me
not.
too. I don't want him to be in faction or
Yeah,
like create his own faction as of now. So.
Enough of the faction over in AEW. We have a lot of them already.
Yes, yes, right.
But moving on, we had a 6-man with Orange Cassidy, Chucky T, and Wheeler Utah. So they were facing HFO, Matt Hardy's faction. That is Matt Hardy and Pride Party. So the rest of the group were also there. So this was also a fun little match here. People are a lot into Orange Cassidy here. So he was the most over guy in this entire match. I have to say, man, I love Pride Parties. This current version of Pride Party, they are funny and they get that heel hit. So it's pretty entertaining.
Let's like with association of Matt Hardy, who's also pretty good at being a heel himself. And before we jump into the match, I just want to like there was this opening moment in the match where Orange Cassidy and Matt Hardy were doing the hands and pocket spot, and while Orange puts Matt's hand into his, there was a line from Tony Schiavone which really cracked me up. It said, "Oh, how apropos!" He's like he's had his hands in everyone else's pocket, so it's very on point. That line got a laugh out of me because, like with Matt Hardy's current gimmick of being an absolute carny, he's just like using everyone's money, everyone's talent and their earnings for his own betterment. So it was a funny line by Tony Schiavone. That.
So we see a lot of Orange Cassidy, comedy spots in the get-go. Then we see, I think it was Wheeler Utah or Cassidy, where the heel team were actually working on one of those guys. But everyone got a shine here. So at the end, we see Matt Hardy. No, it was actually Wheeler Utah was the legal man for his team. So he gets taken out by Gin and Juice from Parade Party. Then Matt Hardy comes in, hits a twist of fate to get the victory, and that's pretty much it. Nothing much, you could say.
Yeah, I mean, based on the standings on the card alone, like besides Orange Cassidy, you had Chuck and Utah. Utah is still, as a rookie in AEW, and you had like a more established unit like the HFO, like especially Matt Hardy and Private Party. So you could understand that giving the win to Matt and Private Party was like a pretty solid decision. Maybe they are building them up for something more. But I enjoyed this match. Like it was a fun opener, a lot different to the opening 6-man tag. So there was like a slight variation in enjoyment. And yeah, I mean, I like the gin and juice. Like, it's even though like the move in itself is a bit contrived, but I enjoy this move a lot to having to watch. And I've got a bit of a scoop here for you.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, not exactly a scoop, it's a news
Okay.
that Wheeler Yuta was passed on by WWE like earlier this year, in their in their tryouts that they carry, right? So it was reported by Sean Ross Sapp that Yuta was supposed to be a perfect fit for WWE because of his style, in-ring style, and his what do you say, his look. And eventually he got passed on, as he was, even though he was seen as a perfect fit, he was passed on by WWE. So it could turn out to be a huge loss for them if, given the potential star in Utah that is there, as he becomes more and more good later on in the years. So it's going to be a huge loss for them, maybe later on.
And Wheeler Yuta is going to be fine, man. He's doing all these other things besides AEW, and get trying to get his name across, and he's a really good talent. So
Yeah,
he's
I
fine
mean,
for now.
I was talking in terms of potential alone. Like he's in very safe hands as of now, and they even brought it up during the match with Daniel Garcia, between Daniel Garcia and Darby Allin, that both Danny Garcia and Wheeler Yuta, they wrestled a 60-minute draw at an indie show. So, I mean, they were constantly bringing it up actually because of how, like, Fatigue was trying to get the best of both of these talents. So, mentioning that in itself is also a way to probably showcase and highlight, the level of talents that they are, how they are making their names on the other independent scene, and probably, like, how are they going to be even better in AEW and, later on in their careers.
But about this match, though, there was yet another spot where we see Chris Statlander. So she was taken out by Nyla Rose. So we'll get to that match. And we had Orange Cassidy, being taken out by, I think it was, what's the
Jack
other tag
Evans,
team? Yes, Jack Evans and
TH2,
Angelico. Yes.
TH2,
Um,
the hybrid 2.
yeah, that's pretty much it. You could do some matches out of from that scenario, but nothing much.
Yes. So, like, Nyla Rose attacks Chris Statlander to get an unfair advantage, while, the very next match was basically them. So, yeah.
We'll get to that match, but before that, we had a segment involving the Young Bucks. They were addressing the situation we had in the opening parts of Dynamite. Where we had Jurassic Express, challenging for them, etc., etc. So we had them showcasing, Nick Jackson, especially, showcasing his basketball, stuff. But it was actually kind of hijacked here by the Jurassic Express. So they attacked both Nick and Matt, and kind of took the shine away from the Young Bucks. That's pretty much it.
Yes, and it was to basically build to their match, and I'm liking this young bucks, like, dickhead basketballers gimmicks from the past couple of weeks, like, since they made the Space Jam entrance, and even last week while they were cutting a backstage promo with Kenny, and there was a lot of teasers in that, but obviously that's more like what you understand. But yeah, I'm thoroughly enjoying the heel run, like ever since probably earlier this year, and it's good to see them showing more of their natural side a little as heels, and in a way they're also putting over other talents whenever they get into the ring with them. So next week's match is going to be fun, I guess, because someone like Jungle Boy has been on a rise for a while, and Luchasaurus is also, like, he's also one of the pretty entertaining acts. So I'm excited for this match next week.
Yeah, the Young Bucks are meant to be over the top heels. That's their pretty much gimmick right now.
Yep. They have been for like a long time, ever since probably the start of Bullet Club.
And they are supposed to be cringe. That is also part of their character. So I don't care if
Yes.
people dislike them or like them. So there you go. But about Jungle Boy, you brought up Jungle Boy here. So did you hear his statement about him disliking cutting promos.
Yeah, it's like I hadn't seen it, but from what I heard, like I just read about it everywhere that he was a pretty socially anxious guy who wasn't really comfortable on the mic. But this week he was pretty good. Like he looked pretty decent on the mic, and like something he could build upon later on.
Yeah, and I don't mind Jungle Boy, going out there and cutting promos like everybody. He can work on that, but as of now, he's fine. He doesn't
Yeah, I
actually,
mean,
need to speak. He's already over with the fans, and what else do you need?
yes, and like he's son of Luke Perry, so you have that's more or less like acting is kind of in his genes, you could say.
Yeah, like he is pretty much gimmick is he's a jungle boy. So why should he speak technically?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you should tell this statement to Disco Inferno because he doesn't get that.
Disco Inferno is just he's craving for attention since he didn't get any during his peak wrestling run. So whatever he says is like it's better to ignore. So fuck him.
So I think I'm getting blocked by Disco Inferno on Twitter. But anyways, let's move on to Chris Statlander versus Nyla Rose. This was actually short, which was good in some fashion. And we see some outside, shenanigans with Vicky Guerrero. She actually made poor Orange Cassidy deaf. So there you go.
Yeah.
You were saying?
No. Continue.
So, like I said, this was a short match. You could say Chris Statlander actually pulled a surprise here. So, we see a power bomb and a area 451 for Statlander
Fantastic name.
to get the win here. Yeah, that is a pretty solid name, area 451.
Yeah, like whoever thought of that man deserves a raise, or probably Statlander herself. But like in itself is hilarious, and it's fun to see that.
But what you think about this match, man? I believe they are slowly building up Chris Statlander. I don't know. I think she's the one that gets the title shot at All Out, or maybe it could be Thunder Rosa.
I'd say it's Statlander, given the amount of focus that it has people that has been behind her, and like she's been going over continuously. She's even ranked number two. Like she was ranked number two before this match. So with the wins and losses, she could probably go up top. Just before All Out 2. But there was one spot apart from the finish where she does this standing pendulum moonsault. That's like a thing of beauty to watch. She does it on from the apron and
No,
onto
before
her opponent.
Nyla was going for that big leg drop.
Yeah, and no, okay,
Yes,
so
I think
I'll
that's the spot. That's the spot where Nyla was going for that leg drop, and Chris
the
Statlander,
Kenta
she did that handstand spot.
yes, like Nyla was drawing comparisons with Kenta Kobayashi. And like I was talking about the pendulum moonsault while she was there on the apron, and then she just jumps onto her opponent down like at the ringside.
Mm-hmm.
But the spears, I mean, Nyla Rose, she's come a long way from like her debut and then to now. Like she's come a long way in the ring. I think she's serviceable, and she's a pretty unique wrestler by herself, and it's good to see her shining, getting her time to shine in the ring by herself. But I think her association with Vicky Guerrero has been hurting her a lot more than like building her up. What do you think about that?
I don't know what to say about this pairing of Vicky and Nyla. It's like
It doesn't really
it's
fit
kind of
Nyla, to
like
be
Lance
honest.
Archer and Jake Roberts all over again. But at least in their
Yeah,
scenario, Jake Roberts can contribute a lot to Lance Archer if given the chance.
yes, I don't think it's working for me or for Nyla herself. But getting back to this match, like Nyla Rose, man, those two spears that she cut, there was one while she was doing the handstand. Chris Statlander was doing the handstand, and Nyla just rushes and just gives her a spear. And there was another one while I think Statlander was running towards the ropes and then she gives a spear. I mean, those spears look brutal. Like if I were there in Statlander's position, I'd probably be not waking up from that. It was that hard to see. But yeah, the win for Statlander is pretty huge with the Area 451. And like they mentioned, she's on number 2 in the ranking. And it's only a matter of time before she goes up to number 1 and faces Britt Baker eventually for the women's championship at All Out. And it has to be Chris Statlander because I don't see anyone else. Like even Thunder Rosa, who has just signed with AEW, probably she's only had one official match ever since signing for AEW, and you would probably see her get more wins under her belt to, I actually establish herself as a number 1 contender to Britt Baker's championship. And if probably Britt Baker wins at All Out, she has to. And this match has to happen if Britt Baker is retaining at All Out, then it has to happen at Full Gear for Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker. What do you think?
Yeah, you could stretch it out, but in other way, you could do a Thunder Rosa Baker match, and you can go forward from that, and you could put Chris Statlander in that long-term build.
Yes, but like who else is there to challenge? Because right now, like we mentioned, Statlander is number 2, and who's number 1? If number 1 was Nyla Rose,
number
then
1 and
she's
number 2
probably
is being shared by Statlander and Thunder Rosa itself.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
So that's why it's a little unpredictable. They could
because
they can put anybody in that position.
Yes, with Rosa, it feels a bit rushed, even though they have obvious history in the story between Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker. But given the focus and shine that is there on Statlander, I mean, it's a no-brainer that you should put Statlander in that match with Baker at All Out.
Let's see. I don't mind at this point. I don't mind either Statlander or Rosa, getting that shot at all.
Me neither, but it's like I'm just saying, based on what we've been seeing over the past few weeks.
Let's see, but moving on, we had a promo from Miro, God's favorite champion, the TNT champion. He's like always grateful for his hot wife, and he was talking about his next challenge, and also he talked about the last defense he had with Lee Johnson. And his upcoming challenge will be a guy who was yet to be signed by AEW. That is, I'm talking about the man, the myth, the legend, Fuego del Sol. So I think this match is happening at Rampage for the TNT Championship, if I'm not wrong.
Yes. So Miro, basically, like Miro is just being a dickhead. Like, he's just challenging people who are lower down the card just to show how dominant he is. Like, I'm just speaking purely in kayfabe here. And it works for his character, like, being how dominant he is on people who are lower in the card just to show, like, he's God's favorite champion. And that's basically him just giving a big fuck you to guys who are at the top of the card. He's not giving them championship opportunities. But regardless, like, this match is now official for the first episode of Rampage, that Miro versus Fuego del Sol for the TNT championship. And if Fuego del Sol wins this match with the championship, he also gets the AEW contract. So a lot of stakes for
Fuego. Did they really put that stipulation as well?
They did. While they were announcing the card for, like, the upcoming shows, like they usually do before the main event, that time they mentioned that if Fuego wins, he'll get a contract, he'll get an AEW contract. At the same time, he'll also win the TNT championship, obviously.
That's pretty interesting.
And it has been a story, I believe, on Dark and Elevation, that, like, how Fuego has been trying to get a contract and he just always comes up short. And he has just won one match. I think that was like a few weeks ago. I'm not sure who was it against, but
it was on Dark.
It was on Dark.
He's never been featured on Dynamite.
Yeah, he hasn't.
He never wrestled. He never wrestled on Dynamite.
Yeah, and the past few weeks that he's been featured on Dynamite, he's been gotten his ass beat by, first by Malakai and then after that by Andrade. So it's a little sad to see. Like, he's like the let's say people's favorite lower card baby face, like their boy, so to speak, who is who is adored by the fans, and they eventually want him to win later on. So he's basically like, yeah, the better word for that would be underdog. So he's like the underdog baby face right now in all of AEW, even if he's not signed. And his popularity has been more or less thanks to Sammy Guevara, right?
Yeah, because of the
Those
vlogs.
vlogs.
You could say he's the first guy that has actually gotten over from that vlog thing that Sammy Guevara does.
Yeah, and besides that, like most of it is BTE that gets more time to shine, obviously, and it's good to see that there are other alternative vlogs or any other avenue that's putting other talent over, be it signed or unsigned in AEW.
That's the power of social media, anyways, you could say.
Yep, all thanks to Zack Ryder.
Yeah, that guy is on some another level. But enough of Matt Cardona, man. We'll talk about the star of the show, you could say, Dr. Britt Baker, TMD. So Shivani, obviously has to interview her. And this is her hometown, Pittsburgh, and this place is going insane, man. We had these people over here with, those crazy towels and stuff. That visual looked great, by the way.
Yeah, heroes welcome for Britt Baker.
And I have to say, man, Britt Baker, what can I say? She's her personality. She's so confident that the presentation of her character, especially the promos, comes out very well, man.
She's a star. Like she is the face of the women's division. I mean, I can keep gushing over her all in over. But man, like the crowd welcomed her with open arms. Obviously, like she's the hometown hero. And she got a well-deserved hero's welcome, in front of her parents and the Pittsburgh crowd. And she even cut a babyface promo, like, I mean, obviously her opponent was going to get booed regardless. And there is like a certain bit of, even if, and she even mentioned that you could have challenged me anywhere else but Pittsburgh, like at the end of the promo before Red Velvet jumped in. But yeah, as in, she even, oh yeah, another thing, like, I've been noticing this little things throughout the show that she even entered from the babyface tunnel. Like there are heel and babyface tunnels, right? For the entrance way.
There was something messed up for this week's Dynamite. Like the heels were coming out of the babyface tunnels, the babyface were coming out of the heel tunnel. Something got misplaced there. If you know, that's a small detail I noticed in while the Elite were making their entrance.
Yeah, that is, yeah, even you're right, actually. Like I didn't notice with the Elite, but I noticed with this one, Britt Baker, she was coming from the babyface tunnel and she was like, being soaking in the adulation from the crowd, which is obviously amazing. Like, I love Britt Baker, I'd say. Like, she's one of my favorite women's wrestlers today.
But it's still up in the air, man, whether she should be a babyface, whether she should be a heel.
She should be a heel.
Yeah, she should be a heel, but problem is these people love her, man.
Yeah,
no matter the city.
Yeah, like she is a bit of a smart favorite, like regardless, because I don't think Red Velvet isn't very established herself to, eventually have the crowd support. Like I might be a bit harsh on Red Velvet, and I don't intend to, but I mean you're going against Britt Baker, and like she's firing on all cylinders. Besides her, like her title reign has been a bit but I think something like this and her eventual match at All Out, be it, as we mentioned, probably Statlander or Rosa, it's going to be the big shot in the arm that her title reign needs.
Speaking about Red Velvet, you could say that Red Velvet is kind of she was kind of getting babyface reactions, so she was established as a babyface. You could have put in anybody else on that spot where Like you could have put
Yeah.
in Nyla Rose or someone.
I was thinking of that too, because had they delayed the match with Nyla Rose to this show, this would have been like entirely Britt Baker City or Britsburg for more or less. But like this is Britt Baker's territory. I mean, there's no way breaching. Like you could, I mean, maybe I'm like probably comparing this like it's a very wayward comparison, but it's like in the 1970s or 80s, like having Jerry Lawler wrestle in Memphis, because he was always going to be the babyface, no matter if he was being a heel anywhere. If you could take him like in any other city, he'd be a detestable heel, but he's a god in Memphis. So I think it's a wayward comparison, or am I like, thinking too much into this? But given the crowd support that Britt Baker had in this segment, like she could be up there in that, home city support, or whatever way you want to describe it.
We are and we'll be yet another hometown next week for Rampage.
Yes, Shami
And,
Guevara.
and yeah, I was about mentioning the other place, Chicago, but you brought up a great point to make a good transition here. But before I make this transition, I hope we see a good match, between Red Velvet and Britt Baker. It has to be a good match. Red Velvet can
Yeah, it
actually
has.
go in the ring, and
Yeah,
hope Red Velvet comes out really well.
yeah. Like if you've noticed, like for the past, like how they even highlighted during the vignette they aired before the promo segment, that like Red Velvet, she's been growing in the ring by herself, and they even mentioned, like last week Britt Baker's promo was, "I beat you up in 3 minutes. You're not even worth my time." And then Red Velvet says, "I have a good win-loss record, so I can challenge you for the title." It was a little funny how we came to that, but again, like Red Velvet has a claim to challenge for the championship either way. And yeah, I mean, the match is going to be good, because like Red Velvet has been growing in the ring, but I totally hate Red Velvet's finisher, man. It's so bad. The
What's wrong with
overdrive.
Red Velvet's finisher?
Like it's a scissors kick turned into an overdrive, and overdrive is like one of my most detested moves. Like I hate that move with a burning passion, man.
Let's see, man. I'm going to see that finisher for the first time on Rampage. Hopefully, or maybe not. I don't know. But I expect a good match.
Yeah, this match is going to be good for sure.
But before we get to the tag title match, we had you could say, a dual promo package for Brian Cage and Ricky Starks. I think we are getting yet another rematch next week on Dynamite, if I'm not wrong.
No, I believe it's going to be a one-on-one face-off. Like it's going to be a
Oh,
promo where Brian Cage and Ricky Starks are going to confront each other in the ring, because there was like Starks' celebration was there a couple weeks ago, which was interrupted by Cage, and then Starks jumped out. So this is basically just like them getting face to face, and why did you betray me? Why is this happening? While Cage is going to crib about it. And yeah, I mean, the highlight for me in this promo segment was Hook going like this at the camera and Taz laughing. So
and this made
not a good,
the Hook Sims on Twitter to just explode with joy.
of course. Like he's also in due for a debut, right? Hook.
I don't know. Maybe they have something for him in the future, but as of now, he's just
Probably,
hanging out with his dad, and that's it.
yeah, probably you could see like something building up to the eventual rematch with Ricky Starks, like how this Labor of Jericho story is going. So similarly, he would have to go uh, probably like Hobbs, like through Hook and Hobbs in order to get to Starks, or have a tag match, like make Hobbs and Hook a tag team while Hook is trying to learn through the ropes, and Hobbs does most of the work. And like as per reports, I think like Hook is also training at the Nightmare Factory with Cody and the other talents like Red Velvet and Brock Anderson. So there were like a lot of reports that Hook is also one of the more impressive guys in the ring. and he was supposed to debut at the same time as Brock Anderson, but Brock Anderson has gotten his way, and Red Velvet has also built up her credibility. So only Hook is left as of now.
But I don't know. We got this thing for next week, and unfortunately, we are in Houston again. So expect some reactions again for Ricky Starks.
Yes, like the show where he won was Austin, right?
I don't know. Was it Austin or
Yeah,
Houston?
it
But
was Austin. It was Austin, and next week we are in Houston. So
no.
it's
That
still going
was
to be.
no. It was Houston, I believe. Some other
No, it was
arena,
Austin.
or
It was Austin, bro.
was it?
And yeah, it was Austin, and tomorrow next week we are in Houston. So Houston is basically Sammy Guevara City. So yeah,
But Ricky Starks is also technically from that area, so I don't know.
yeah,
Is
like
are AW
he was born
doing
there.
is AW doing this on purpose? I believe.
Yeah, I guess.
I don't know, man. We talked about this in the last encounter these two had, but yeah.
Anyway,
But shall we move on to the next segment? That was for the Impact Tag Team Championship. It was the Good Brothers. So they were facing Evil Uno and Stu Grayson from the Dark Order. And by the way, we only had Colt Cabana accompanying the Dark Order members. The rest of the group, they are saying there is some dissension over the whole Hangman Page deal, where they didn't, where Uno and Grayson didn't allow the other members to help him out in that Hangman Page beatdown. So there's something to look forward to, that you could do some long-term storyline over there.
yeah, and they even teased it on these like this past week when like these guys were eventually bickering, all the Dark Order members with Uno and Grayson, and I didn't get to watch the whole thing yet, but there was that moment where Hangman replaces the beer can with a CD. Like if you noticed last week, like there was a CD kept on the table while Hangman was trying to talk to them, and then he said he needs his own space, and then he walks off.
Yeah,
So
they
they
kind of
meant
gave it a payoff on BT this week.
yes, which I'm actually yet to watch that. But yeah, so there's like only Evil Uno and Grayson that are facing Good Bros. I mean, Colt Cabana is the only one who's accompanying them versus Good Brothers with Brandon Cutler. I think this is the most TV time that Brandon Cutler has ever gotten, because he's like everywhere on the show. Like he was there in the opening match, he was there in the segment that followed, he was there in the Young Bucks promo segment backstage, and now he's here. So there's like too much of Brandon Cutler this week.
And speaking about Brandon Cutler, so he was getting involved so much that Colt Cabana had to chase him out, but he was then
The
cornered by
punch that he
Frank.
gave was hilarious. Yeah, Colt Cabana just goes and tar.
I think he gave him an elbow.
Yeah, sorry, it was an elbow, right? It was funny
So
to see.
I think he was getting cornered by Frankie Kazarian. So Brandon Cutler is just being dragged out from the arena, you could say. So speaking about the match was good. Good brothers, they were just being good brothers, while Evil Uno and Stu Grayson did the heavy load, carrying this match.
Yes, and before I start talking about this match, I mean, what the fuck is the Good Brothers theme? It's
I
so bad.
listen. Me being the team, you could say Mark for wrestling themes. I actually like that theme.
I hate it.
Why?
Like,
Why does
I don't
everyone hate the Good Brothers theme, man? It is actually solid.
I don't know, like, to each their own, but like every time I listen, it's like the "Hey, Woody." I mean, it does my head in. Like, I don't know, but it's so bad to listen to. Maybe as the more I listen to, it's going to be so bad it's good for me later on. Like I'll just enjoy it for the ironic reasons. But boy, man, like I hate this theme with a burning passion. Like, what the fuck? And
That theme is good, man.
I don't know, like,
Yeah, the people
yeah,
who made the Good Brothers theme are the same guys who made the OG Bullet Club theme.
really,
Yep.
really.
It's
Oh
yes.
my God.
You will not hear about wrestling themes, being detailed and reviewed quite like I do all the reviews and stuff for wrestling themes. So there you
We should probably do a segment on that on this channel, like just make some special episodes on wrestling themes alone.
man, I already got a lot of things on my plate, man. We'll do that in bits
I'd,
and
I'd
pieces.
take I'd take that. Don't worry about it.
But about
So
this match,
yeah,
the match was, you could say, it was decent enough. The Dark Order members were actually doing a lot here. And so, like I said, Brandon Cutler is taken out of the equation. So for a while, we see Evil Uno, I think, was being worked from the work. You could say targeted by the Good Brothers. So we see Stu Grayson. He actually did some great high spots in the match. Typical Stu Grayson here. So in the end, we would see Brandon Cutler come back once again to cost Dark Order the match here. Like they were about to hit their finisher, the fatality. Brandon Cutler randomly shows up and cost Evil Uno, I guess.
no.
The
What exactly happened was basically Uno and Grayson were going for the finisher, and then Gallows puts the tag title inside the ring, which distracts the referee. And then while the referee's dealing with the tag titles situation, then Gallows distracts Grayson, and then Uno is trying to put Gallows out of the match, and then he gets hit with a gun stun, and like Grayson, who is on the top rope, gets hit with a magic killer from the Good Brothers to pick up the win. And like, yeah, it was a pretty decent match. Like Stu Grayson, as usual, like they've been giving him more time to, like been giving him more focus, and every time he's in the ring while he's doing his moves, everyone, like the commentators keep saying he's like the most underrated member in Dark Order or perhaps AW, which is some praise for someone like Stu Grayson. And he is really good. Like he was easily the MVP of this match. Like Uno is also pretty good in his own right, but I think maybe there might be a time you could see Grayson getting some singles opportunities, like how we saw Dante Martin earlier in the show. So you could probably see Stu Grayson getting some opportunities and maybe even challenging for a TNT title shot later on, like how
uh,
no,
uh,
I think the comparison is off. So
are
yeah,
you comparing with the other Dark Order member 10?
not 10. Actually, I was going for John Silver.
Uh, but yeah, the main part to take from this is that Dark Order thing, the dissension, you could say, in that group with regarding Hangman Page. So that's the only thing that came out intriguing here. And this was, you could say, a safe bet that Good Brothers were going to retain the tag titles here.
I mean, had to happen because, like, given their involvement in the main stories with Kenny and the Bucks, so it had to happen that Good Brothers were eventually going to retain. And if we are expecting a title change, it has to happen on Impact rather than AW, more or less.
But yeah, that was that. But shall we move on to the next segment? It was Tony Schiavone. So he was along with the factory members, QT Marshall and the rest of the gang. And this was, if you didn't pay a lot of attention, this was actually being a thing for the last 3 weeks where QT Marshall had to apologize to Tony Schiavone, but he was skipping for all these weeks. But finally decided to publicly apologize to Tony Schiavone, but he in the last second once again backed off and just trashing on the fans, trashing on Tony Schiavone. And all of a sudden, I think it was Nick Comoroto, he targets to the crowd where we see Tony Schiavone's son, who was on the front row, so he gets
Chris
dragged onto the
Shivani.
ring. Yeah, so they got Tony Schiavone's son. I think Nick Comoroto had grabbed him, and we had Tony Schiavone being forced to apologize to QT Marshall. So Tony had no choice here, and he apologized to QT Marshall and also called him a son of a bitch. I think QT Marshall didn't appreciate the apology here. I think he was about to beat both Shivani and his son. But we hear a familiar theme which went well, and we see Paul White showing up. He didn't get a big reaction from the crowd, but he got a certain reaction. So he shows up, and we see him choke slamming Aaron Solo while the other factory members escaped, and that was it. I don't know where you go from here. Are they building a certain special attraction match for Paul White?
It's for me, it's more or less an advertisement for Dark Elevation, because obviously I was going to say Big Show, but Paul White and Tony Schiavone are are an announcing team over there, and there is, like, of course, like, guys from the stable, like this factory stable, they are like heavily featured on Dark or Elevation. So this feud is very much like in that category for me. Like, it's going to have more time on Elevation, and this, whatever they teased on this segment, on this episode, was just an advertisement for that. Like, tune into Dark Elevation to see what happens next. So that's my take on this. That it's going to be over there, and I don't think it's going to take much airtime on Dynamite. But given Big
I think it
Show,
will.
despite being a legend,
I think it will.
there will just be like minor inklings, like obviously, because Big Show is like one of he's a legend in this business. So probably that's some way they're going to feature on Dynamite. But I think that's going to be in bits and pieces. But the matches, and if there are some more, you know, building of this feud, I think it's more or less on Elevation than on Dynamite, because it's exactly like it fits that category for me.
But the end goal has to be a big match. Maybe Paul White versus QT Marshall, or they do some random tag match.
Yeah, probably, like, yeah, the main match could take place on Dynamite or probably at a buy-in, but other than that, I don't see it getting, I don't see, or even Rampage for that matter, because like Rampage is an avenue where you can showcase things that aren't getting much airtime on Dynamite. So you could probably do that too. But yeah, that's about it.
It is what it is at this point. Like there's not a lot of excitement. Yes, we'll get to see Paul White wrestle in AEW, but let's see.
That's it.
But before we get to the main event, so we had a small package for Camille Brickhouse, the NWA Women's Champion. So she was hyping up her match at their NWA pay-per-view. It's called Empower, I believe. So she will be, defending her championship against Layla Hirsch. So that's
Legit
it.
Layla Hirsch. Yeah, I mean, it was just basically introducing everyone to who Camille is, and she was also putting Layla Hirsch over. You're tough, even though you're diminutive, you're tough and strong, but I'm gonna make you my bitch. And that's it. They just showed the graphics, and they showed matches for next week. You want me to run through them for matches for Rampage and next week's Dynamite?
Go on.
Okay, so for Rampage, like the first match, like kicking off the show is see why am I saying CM Punk? It's Kenny Omega versus
Go.
It's Kenny Omega versus Christian Cage for the Impact World Championship. That's kicking off the show. Then in the middle segment, you have Miro versus Fuego del Sol for the TNT Championship, and also if Fuego wins, he gets a contract as well for the AEW. And the main event is Britt Baker versus Red Velvet. And so coming to next week's Dynamite. So we have like, there's obviously, as we mentioned, there is Bucks versus Jurassic Express for the AEW Tag Team Championship, and as it was also announced that it was Darby Allin and Sting, they are going to face 2.0 in a Texas Tornado match. And there was another match that was announced, which is Sammy Guevara versus Shawn Spears. And it's in Sammy Guevara's hometown of Houston, Texas. And they've also advertised a special big announcement from Sammy Guevara. So interesting. There are some reasons to tune into Dynamite next week.
Are we in Houston next week?
Yes, we are in Houston next week.
Prediction. I think he does a proposal.
Yeah, probably you could see that happen. I was probably expecting, like, in a more wrestling sense, that he would challenge for a championship, maybe a TNT championship, that we could probably see that happen. But yeah, that, and even Miro is facing Fuego, and with Fuego and Sammy's association, you could probably see that match happen sometime. So probably a challenge for All Out is what I was guessing between Miro and Sammy Guevara.
Let's see. We'll get to that when we get to Dynamite. But yeah, I think that's pretty much the card for both the shows.
Yes.
So let's not waste time and get to this main event. It was actually the fourth labor of Jericho. And the fourth labor was Wardlow. So Chris Jericho facing Wardlow here in the main event. The match, it was pretty slow for my liking.
Yeah, it was sloppy in parts, this match in itself, but that was more or less just to putting Wardlow over, even in, we'll get to. But the whole match was basically Wardlow just powerbombing Jericho 6 times. And
half of the match, Jericho was concerned that his pants didn't came off. That's what I was most concerned with. Man, pull up your pants, man.
Yes, and it was just MJF trying to just putting Wardlow over from the ringside, like, yeah, he's my guy. He's the one who's going to end Jericho, and Jericho's pants are also falling off. And then it was just that, like, Jericho was just getting his ass handed to him. And then while he was becoming a casualty of war, the knee strike that Wardlow does, I don't like that move personally. But that's it. Like, while he was doing that, and Jericho reverses into a Walls of Jericho, and MJF just rakes Jericho's eyes while ref Aubrey Edwards was trying to concentrate on Wardlow getting tapped. Was he going to tap out or not? And then MJF basically enters the ring while he was trying to hand his Dynamite Dozen ring to Wardlow so that Wardlow could hit on Jericho. But then it backfires on him, like his own stipulation backfires on him. So that was like a tiny bit of comeuppance that was good to see. And then Aubrey ejects him from the ring. So while Aubrey is distracted with MJF putting on a drama outside, so Jericho just hits Wardlow with Floyd, the baseball bat, and then hits him with the Judas effect to pick up the win. It was a very weird ending. Like, this match was just showing how dominant Wardlow is and how Jericho picked that tiny bit of opportunity that he had, and like, in picking up the win. So he's gone through all labors of Jericho, and he's finally getting the match with MJF. And as Jericho was celebrating his victory, you had Sean Spears attacking Jericho from behind, and then Wardlow joins him. And then after that, Sammy Guevara tries to even the odds, but again, he also gets his ass handed to him by Wardlow. And as it is going on, like, both Jericho and even MJF joins in the war, and then he hits Jericho with the salt, logs Jericho in the salt of the earth. And it took ages for Jake Hager to come and try to even the odds, but then these guys back off. And should I get to the stipulation for MJF versus Jericho, or are you going to?
So I think the in the post match, after this whole thing is done, so MJF on the mic, he actually talks about the fifth labor of Jericho. And by the way, did you were also confused that we were going to have 5 matches in this five labors of Jericho, and then we're going to get MJF, or
Like, I was, but I think the first promo that they cut at Road Rager was when MJF said that you have to go through four people and then you have to go through me. So MJF was very much the fifth labor as advertised in that promo. But then later on, they did try to twist the needle a little while they were trying to say that, MJF can be after the fifth labor, or probably MJF is the fifth labor. So they were just teasing with that like for a while, especially during the match with Nick Gage when MJF was still just saying like, oh, he has to go through like five people and then he has to go through me. So that was always confusing and you don't even know what exactly were they going to do eventually. And then like now with Wardlow, and it made sense that Wardlow was the final guy because it also puts him over in a way as like, he's the dominant force who could probably stop Jericho and save the day for MJF, but unfortunately it didn't happen. So there you go, we are getting MJF versus Jericho, the rematch and we are not even getting it at All Out, we are getting it next week on Dynamite, which is weird.
Yeah, we have yet another match taken up from that All Out card, a potential matchup.
Like at the start of the show, as I was saying, like, there were matches that we were expecting to take place at All Out, but that were happening on these Dynamites. Like when I was talking about Cody versus Malachi Black. And this was another match that I was talking about, which we said we'll get to. So there you go. Like it's still weird that it's happening on a Dynamite than on the pay-per-view. I think it carries more gusto that it happens on your biggest show, probably your biggest show of the year, than on a random Dynamite.
But you forgot about the stipulation. The stipulation
Yeah,
for this one is that he can't.
I was
I was
hoping you would
expecting
say.
something else. Yes, I was expecting something else. Like, yeah, the stipulation could be Jericho puts his career on the line, something like that, but they are not going that far. But the thing is that he will be banned by using that Judas effect finisher. Also, he will not be allowed to use Judas for his entrance theme during the match. So this you could say takes off the crowd involvement here, and he has to come out to dead silence. That's what MJF said. But we could see
It's still
the
lame though.
crowd, yeah, the crowd
It's still
singing
lame.
singing along to Judas, hopefully, and yeah,
They
that's pretty
should.
much the stipulation.
Yeah, it's a lame stipulation, all things considered.
But that was this whole thing with the labors of Jericho, man.
Yeah. Like, what do you think of the matches in itself? Like all these Labor of Jericho matches. What were your thoughts on those?
The Sean Spears match was fine. The second labor was Nick Gage, right? Yeah, that was the out of all these matches, that was pretty good.
That was the only good match for me.
The other matches, the Wounded
We
one, that was sloppy. Wardlow one, forget about it. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't have any interest of seeing Chris Jericho in the ring anymore.
Me neither. Like, we forgot
Respectfully,
to mention,
to add,
yeah,
respectfully.
yes. Forgot to mention that Chris Jericho is the commentator for Rampage along with Mark Henry, Excalibur, and Taz. So that's also happening. But
Where's
yes,
Mauro Ronaldo, man? I want
he should have
Mauro.
been there. He should have been there. Like even if it was just Excalibur and Taz, I would have taken it because they're hilarious on Dark together. And Mark Henry as a commentator, like I'll just wait for how he does for to form an opinion. But Jericho again, like he's good as a special commentator. I don't think I'll be ready to listen to him regularly. And I feel he's going to probably either lose next week versus MJF, and then because he has a tour with Fozzy earlier in September, so probably that's also the reason they could be doing this match on Dynamite instead of All Out.
Mm, I don't mind it because at least we'll be getting some other big names on that card.
Right, but again, like maybe Jericho could just be a placeholder for all we know on Rampage.
And so if you are having this match, then you should have MJF go over, right?
Yeah, it has to be. If Jericho is taking time off for his Fozzy tours, then it only makes sense that MJF goes over and then heads on to bigger and better things, probably even challenging for it for the World Championship. I'm just putting it out in the air because obviously, like with Kenny on top, the MJF, heel versus heel wouldn't work. But I was just throwing more of a hypothetical situation in this case.
So let's see, man. Hopefully, Houston does a great job, doing a single on to Judas or other. So otherwise, it will come out as cringe on television.
Right.
But that was Dynamite, man.
Yep. It was. So I can't wait for next week though. Like next week is going to be a good show.
Yeah, a lot of a lot of big things happening regarding Rampage. Dynamite is kind of being a secondary show for now. They are putting a lot more focus on Rampage, for at least for this next 2 weeks.
Yes, and also like earlier next year that Dynamite is moving to TBS and the Rampage is going to be the TNT show. So you could see more focus on Rampage. But it's weird because Rampage is only 1 hour and Dynamite is 2 hours.
Let's see, man. 1 hour Rampage, I could digest that.
Yeah, there's way too much wrestling to watch for us.
But before we leave, Ridwan, where can these guys find you?
So you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Rid_Amman. And if you're watching this in video form, you can see it right below the Batman logo where on camera.
And you can find Slam Up Wrestling on Twitter at SlamUpW, Instagram at SlamUp Wrestling. And you can catch these reviews on Anchor, Spotify as well. And this was the AEW Dynamite review, and see you guys next time.
See ya.